Welcome back to another Saxton podcast. It feels good to have you in on this gloomy Thursday to talk about football again.
It's pretty fitting, I think. Maybe a little crisp in the air for college football. It's coming.
It is. I feel it. We kick off tonight. Nothing really of note, but it'll be good to have it back on the TV.
Yeah, even just the sound is a welcome change.
Well, we're here to do our college football preview. We'll go through the conferences, talk about the Heisman odds and national title odds. Let's get right into it. Let's start in the ACC. You give me your overall thoughts, and let's break down the ACC.
Yeah, the ACC, I think, is going to be similar to last year, a two-horse race where the conference will come down to that October 29th matchup down in Tallahassee, that Clemson-Florida State game. Those are the two teams. I think they might, outside of Alabama's skill positions, those might be the two most talented teams in the country. Deshaun Watson, leading Heisman candidate at this point, or one of. And so is Dalvin Cook from Florida State. And Florida State might be the deepest team in the country. So I think the ACC is a two-horse race.
Florida State returns everybody on offense. As you mentioned, Cook as well. May have the two best lines in the country.
Yeah.
I think Jimbo Fisher's the biggest scumbag in the country, but he does wonders with quarterbacks. I like them to win the ACC this year.
Clemson is going to throw up 40-something a game. Their offense is explosive, especially if Watson can stay healthy. He was healthy last year. I still have a little bit of an injury fear with him, just because he's a little bit lanky and he likes to get out in space. It's really, to me, it's that defensive line of Florida State versus Clemson's offensive line in that game. You like Florida State. I'm going to go with the higher-powered offense. I think, college football comes down to that quarterback, and I'll take the better quarterback in that matchup. So I think Clemson will win the ACC.
Yeah, October 29th in Tallahassee. Both teams will be coming off a bye. That one will probably be the game of the year other than Alabama LSU. Do you see anybody else that could give either of these teams trouble in the ACC or become a surprise team?
Not really. Louisville and North Carolina are both going to start the season ranked. I really like Carolina, where they're going, especially on offense. I think their offense is going to be very good. Maybe that does cause some problems, but when you look at the rosters and you look at the talent, especially with Florida State, they're just so deep on both sides of the ball at key positions. I just can't see, unless something, the injury bug bites or something, but it's going to be tough to beat Clemson or Florida State if you're those other teams.
Louisville does get Florida State at home. They have to travel to Clemson. They do have 17 starters back, including their quarterback Lamar Jackson, who is a playmaker and recently admitted that he had no idea what the plays were last year. He was just trying to make something happen. As the season went on, he got really comfortable. I think they won 7 of their last 8.
Yep.
And they get Houston late in the year. If they could somehow pull an upset of Florida State or Clemson, that Houston game could be very pivotal at the end.
That will probably be one of the more underrated games, before the season starts, I think, looming on the schedule. Houston's a really good team, too, so I agree. That game looks promising.
That is November 17th, second to the last weekend in November. It is a Thursday night game in Houston.
I like that. Those Thursday night games on the road are hard to win, though.
I love the out-of-conference game late in the year.
Yeah, I think teams should do more of that. It would definitely spice up the late part of the schedule a little bit.
Other than Louisville, I think they may scare both of them. I don't know if they could pull the upset in either game. But I do think they'll hang around in that side of the ACC. How about the other side of the ACC? Is Carolina your pick?
I guess, yeah. I think they have the best offense. Duke's always scrappy, so you can't overlook them. And I think their quarterback's going to make some noise. But Georgia Tech, can't get away from the offense. It's hard to game plan for, but when you're playing another team that can score, I just don't think that that's sustainable. So it's almost by default that I like Carolina. I think they have the best offense, so that's what I'm sticking with.
I agree. I do like Carolina as well. I think they have some of the better skill positions in the country. Their running back, Elijah Hood, is very, very good. I'm leaning somewhere else in this division. I actually like Virginia Tech this year.
Really?
They have a tough schedule and a tough stretch, which starts in week 2. They play Tennessee, and I think they're playing in Bristol, Tennessee racetrack, at NASCAR track, which will be a tough game. Tennessee should be a very good team this year. They get Carolina on the road. They have Miami at home on a Thursday night, and late in the year they go to Notre Dame. They have 15 starters back. I think Fuente is really going to do a good job with that on the offensive side of the ball. I thought Beamer did a great job there while he was there, but the offense really got stale towards the end. I think Fuente's really going to invigorate the program.
I love the hire. I think it's a great hire. I think he might need a year or two to get some of his offensive guys in there. That's why I'm not as high on them as you. Questions at the quarterback and some of the skill positions for me. It might be because I think their schedule is tough, like you just pointed out. I think the reason I lean North Carolina is I don't want to tip my hand, but they have a big game week 1 against Georgia, and I might lean to the Carolina side on that game. I'm not going to tip my hand yet, but I like that opening week matchup, and if they can get a big win under their belt like that early on, I think that bodes well for them going forward into conference play.
I put a little star on this game on October 8th when Carolina hosts Virginia Tech. The week prior, they're at Florida State. The week after, they're at Miami. Va Tech has a great spot right there for them.
That is a very good spot. That's a good nugget right there. Might have to write that one down for a bet that week.
How about your thoughts on Mark Richt and the Miami Hurricanes? A lot of guys are high on them this year.
Oh, man, I've defended Mark Richt for a lot of years at Georgia. I think Georgia's a tough job. The expectations are the same as some of the other schools, but I think it's a harder job to win consistently at. He did a good job. I don't know if I like the fit of Miami with Richt. It just doesn't jive to me. We'll see. He'll probably be able to get some players. To me, though, he's always that guy that will come up short, especially in the big game situations. I think they got a tough schedule this year. I think year 1 might get off to a rocky start. But down the line, it's probably a good hire from the standpoint of getting the program steadying the ship type of situation.
Schedule's favorable early. Florida A&M, Florida Atlantic at home. They go to App State. Then they have an off week and go to Georgia Tech. But that off week should help to prepare for that option. But then starts Murderer's Row. October 8th, Florida State at home. The 15th, North Carolina at home. Following week, Thursday night at Va Tech. And then the following week at Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's the stretch right there. You would think they're probably going to be underdogs in all 5 of those games.
I would think so as well.
If they win one of those games, the Georgia Tech one is probably the most winnable. If they go 1-4 during that span, I think they're doing well. That's tough to ask.
So you have Clemson and North Carolina playing for the ACC title?
I do.
Clemson emerging?
I think that would be a fun game to watch, especially if Carolina gets there healthy. That offense could definitely force Clemson to score 40-plus like they usually do. But, yeah, can't go against Clemson in that matchup.
I'm going Florida State Vatech, and Florida State comes out as your ACC champion. My over-under for the ACC to play would be Virginia Tech over 7.
Fair enough. I'm going to stick to the chalk here. The only game, I think Clemson will be favored in every game, and I can see them losing to Florida State, but that's the only one I can see them losing to. So I'll take the over 10.5 there.
Don't give us the prediction, but do you see any scare this weekend at Auburn?
Possibly one of those first half get off to a slow start type of deals and then blow it open the second half. Like you said, don't want to say too much we'll have another one with the lines, but I can see a slow start from Clemson, yeah. Especially on the road.
I agree with you. If they could get by that one, their only other tough test would be Louisville at home on October 1st, and then, as aforementioned, at Florida State on the 29th. Other than that, I don't see a scare on the schedule.
No, I think they're going to turn into one of those very, very tough teams to beat at home. I think they have a very strong home field advantage.
Let's move along to the Pac-12.
That's all I have to say about the Pac-12.
I wanted to get this one out of the way.
Yeah, we're going to sound probably like East Coast homers for this segment, but the Pac-12 is just down. I don't know. Don't see a good year out of the Pac-12. Love Stanford. Love David Shaw. Love McCaffrey. I think Oregon will be down. UCLA, Rosin's going to be a really good player. I think we'll talk about this in a few minutes about the Heisman sleepers. I think he could have a huge year, but don't see a lot of depth on UCLA, especially on defense. USC is trying to right the ship from a bunch of different scandals. So, I don't know. I see a lot of teams kind of in that 7 to 9 win range. I don't see anyone really being the alpha of this conference.
I completely agree. I think you hit it right on the head. I actually think the Pac-12 does not get a team in the playoff. I think they beat each other up in conference. Stanford, who's done well in the conference the past couple of years, they lose their quarterback and have an absolutely brutal schedule to start the year. Host the Fightin' Snyders of Kansas State, then off, and then USC at home, at UCLA, at Washington. Washington State at home, at Notre Dame.
Yeah, I would say that Stanford is the heavy favorite, but that schedule, I could see them dropping 3 or 4 games pretty easily.
Yeah, I like the under of Stanford 8.5. I think that schedule is just brutal with a new quarterback trying to be broke in.
Yeah, and let's just say McCaffrey gets dinged. That's probably a lot of their offensive output right there in one player. I don't love a team that relies on one guy like that so heavily, especially in a conference that is to play a big boy almost every week.
You mentioned David Shaw in your overview of the conference. I do want to mention him because I don't think he gets mentioned enough for how great of a job he's done at Stanford. I know that Harbaugh really set him up, but Shaw has taken it to another level at Stanford, keeping the consistency going, especially with their academic standards. And they play a different style than what most of the other Pac-12 teams do. I think he's just done a fantastic job there.
Totally agree. I think he's probably the most underrated coach in the country. I like that he has stayed there. I think he would translate very well to the pro game. I wouldn't be shocked if you saw him get a pro job in the next 4 or 5 years. But, yes, one of the best, if not top 3 or 4 in the country, I think.
Your thoughts on a team that everybody seems to be high on this year, Washington. They returned 15 starters, including the quarterback. Week out of conference schedule, Rutgers, Idaho, and Portland State. Peterson's third year here. This is where he's finally getting his guys in. Is this the year they finally reach the double-digit plateau? Plateau?
Oh man, I like Washington, but I think the hype might have gone too far. I know me and you have both loved Peterson in the past, and I think he finally got his guys there. They return a bunch of good players. Here's the problem I have. I kind of think they're like my Washington Bravehearts. They didn't really beat anybody last year. They won at USC, but USC was in complete disarray. They played a lot of close games, but I still need to see them beat some good teams to really hop on the wagon, I think.
I agree. I'm not as high on them as everybody else is. I think they'll be right around that 9-win total, which is their over-under.
Yeah, I could see them getting off to a good start. They get Rutgers to open their year, Rutgers, Idaho, Portland State, at Arizona, which will be a good game. So if they can get off to a 4-0 start, then they get Stanford at home. So that's probably the game I would circle. Stanford has given them trouble in the past. Then they got to go to Oregon. So those back-to-back games right there will probably dictate their over-under for the year.
Perfect segue into Oregon. They're my pick coming out of this side of the Pac-12. I thought that they dealt with many injuries last year, which hampered the season. In the last 7 years, they're 64-5 at Autzen, and they do get Washington and Stanford there. And Brady Hoke in as defensive coordinator.
I like that move. I agree with you. I love the home field advantage. I love that they get those tough games at home. I don't think they have the same skill talent on offense they've had in years past, but I think it's still higher than the rest of the teams on this side, so I agree with you. I think they come out of this side.
I would lean over here, but my favorite over on this side of the division is Washington State over 7.5 and the Fighting Mike Leaches.
The Cougs.
Very favorable schedule. They get Oregon at home, UCLA at home, and we know that Leach can put up a ton of points.
I would, for this north side, the only one I considered was the under at Stanford. That's the only place I would really lean.
I don't really know what to say about our team that made us so much money, the Oregon State Beavers, but I had to say something about them.
I think we might be betting against them a lot this year. That's what I'm going to say about them. They might continue to make us money.
The only game of note at home would be Oregon, the last game of the year.
Yeah, I was going to say, we need the Beavers late in the year at home. That's the only chance we have with them, I think.
How about the other side of the division? You had mentioned Josh Rosen at UCLA. Should be really, really fun to watch. They're going to a pro-style offense, so I think that should fit them as we move forward, especially going to the next level. They avoid Washington and Oregon this year on their schedule. They do have to go to A&M and BYU in out-of-conference games. Your thoughts on UCLA?
I think they have probably the best pro prospect quarterback in the country. I think that does a lot for a team. I don't love their depth. I don't love Jim Mora. I've never really bought into him being that good of a coach. Don't love their schedule, like you said. They got to go to A&M and to BYU the first 3 weeks of the season, and then after BYU they have to play Stanford, Arizona. I think Arizona's on the uptick. I like Rich Rod. I like what he does. They have some talent there. I see 3 or 4 of these teams, USC, UCLA, Arizona, maybe Arizona State. I see them all about the same. There's a lot of hype around USC, too. But I got to give the edge to UCLA just because of the quarterback position.
Yeah, I also like them to represent this side of the division. I don't. The star game I have is at BYU. I love BYU in that spot with Stanford the week after. UCLA beat BYU last year in UCLA by 1. I think they're going to drop that game at BYU. And I agree, this division is, I think UCLA is the favorite, but not by much. I think there's some other
No.
teams that could surprise. I think this side of the division will really beat each other up.
Yeah, if you want to call it beating each other up, I think they just might fall over each other. UCLA is one of those teams, I don't know what it is. There's always 2 or 3 teams around the country that always seem to get bit by the injury bug, and UCLA is one of them. If they can avoid that, I think they should be able to get out of here. But this could be one of those situations where it's a random team with 7 wins that gets out of this into the championship game.
Their crosstown rivals, USC, has one of the tougher schedules in the country. Bama to open, and then at Stanford, at Utah. And then the last 3 games of the year, last 4 games, Oregon at home, at Washington, at UCLA, Notre Dame at home. I think this schedule is way too tough for this inexperienced team. They do get 10 guys back on offense. I like their offensive line, but defensively, I think they're too inexperienced to win this side of the division.
Totally agree. I think they're still 2 or 3 years away from being what they should be. And like you said, that schedule, especially to start off the year, they could be 1-4 very easily.
I think this is the type of team that needs something good to happen early, or it could be, I don't want to say a free fall, but it could get ugly.
Yeah, they're pretty big underdogs against Alabama to start the year. I will say their strength on offense is probably spreading it out, and their offensive line might be able to do a little bit against Bama's front 7. They're going to have to spread Alabama out to stay in the game. I'm just not sure they have the physicality to hang with them, though, for the totality of the game.
If UCLA were to not win this side, who would be your pick?
I'm going to go Arizona, actually. I think they are going to be a sneaky, tough team to beat on this side.
I'm staying in state. I like Arizona State this year. They're my over-under play in all of the Pac-12, over 6 wins.
Wow, that's bold of you with an over-under play in the Pac-12. If I had somewhere to lean, I would lean the over in Arizona, but officially I would not play anything on this side. And overall, I would take the under with Stanford as my Pac-12 play, but nothing on this side officially.
So I have UCLA, Oregon in the Pac-12 championship. I have UCLA winning the Pac-12, but not going to the playoff. Your prediction?
I am going to go UCLA, Oregon as well. I will go Oregon to win. I think they'll probably be the healthier team at the end of the year, but I am with you. I don't think any of these teams will have the resumes to sniff the playoff.
To the Big 12 and our boy Bob Stoops.
Bobby!
Ranked in the preseason top 5, which has never boded well for Oklahoma. Your overall thoughts on the Big 12 this year?
I think Bobby Stoops, big game Bobby, has one of the easier roads to the playoffs of anybody. I think the Big 12 is down this year. I would be shocked if Oklahoma doesn't make it out of the Big 12. It would be one of the, they'd have to have some injuries or one of the bigger failures of Bobby's career.
I'm not buying into the hype of Oklahoma this year. I've done it too many times.
Really?
Tough early schedule, Houston. Then they get Louisiana Monroe prior to hosting Ohio State. But I think the game that is going to be a trap game for them is at TCU on October 1st. And if they don't beat Ohio State, I think this season is under the 10 wins. Because I like TCU in the Big 12 this year.
Wow, TCU, a lot of turnover there. I really want to like Texas. I think keeping Charlie Strong and not running out of town before he had any sniff of his players, would have been a disaster. I think keeping him was a great idea. I love where they're headed. I still think they're a year away. But I think Texas could be the sneaky team here. I agree with you about the schedule with Oklahoma, but man, they just have so much more talent than a lot of these teams. I think K-State has a down year. West Virginia's going to have a down year. Baylor, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if they don't have a football team by week 6. I just don't see many tough teams in this conference this year. I do like the over with Oklahoma State. I think they could put up some points. I think their over-under is 9, I want to say. I kind of like them to reach 9 or 10 wins just by default. But I'm going to stick with our boy Bob Stoops and think they win 10 games and get out of here.
Oklahoma State over/under 8.5.
I like them to win 9 or 10, so I'll go over there.
To piggyback off your points, I do think I like the Longhorns this year. I think this is a big year for Charlie Strong. I agree it was the right move to keep him around. As we mentioned with Peterson, this is Strong's 3rd year, so he's getting his guys in now. I do think they're a year away. I think their defense will be really good this year, but they're probably a year away on offense. The schedule's not overly difficult, but I think that they're probably going to win a game that they shouldn't and lose 1 or 2 that they shouldn't lose.
Totally agree. I think that's the case with them since they're so young. They get Oklahoma at home, which I like. I like the back half of their schedule, especially starting after Oklahoma. I think they can go on a run where they win 4 or 5 games in a row. They end the season with TCU. I think they could go on a run before that game, though, and kind of get themselves in a position where maybe they only have 1 loss. We'll see. They get Notre Dame week 1. To me, that will set the tone for the season. If they can, I think they're underdogs in that game. If I'm not mistaken, I think they're 4 or 5 point underdogs.
4 point, yes.
Yeah, I think if they can pull an upset there, they will be a 1-loss team going into that TCU game. I'll say that.
Well, I'll give you my points for TCU. They get the Texas A&M transfer Kenny Hill in at quarterback, who can move around a little bit, similar to Boykin, what they had last year. Defensively, they were absolutely ravaged by injuries last year.
Yep.
So they get 8 guys back, plus Gary Patterson's one of the best defensive coaches in the country. The schedule's not overly difficult. They do have Arkansas out of conference, but they do host Oklahoma. And then they go to Baylor November 5th. Then they have an open week, Oklahoma State, and at Texas. So that'll be a tough 2-week stretch there. But their big games are spread out. They get Oklahoma at home. I like TCU to win the Big 12 this year.
Strong arguments, and I don't have much against it. I don't love Kenny Hill, and maybe that's why I don't love them this year. I think to be a transfer starter like that, you got to be pretty sharp, Russell Wilson type sharp. So I don't love the quarterback situation there.
My over/under play would be under West Virginia 7.5.
I like that too. I think that's a strong one.
I think this is going to be a down year for Holgorsen and the Mountaineers.
I think this is Holgerson's last year. I think you'll see him get canned. I don't think they do those in college, but first coach fired, I wouldn't be shocked if it's him.
I'm glad you brought that up. The 2 conferences that we talked about, any big names in the ACC on the hot seat in your mind?
A lot of turnover in the ACC recently, so
right.
I don't think so, no.
Pac-12?
No, probably not. I think the only one I'd have my eye on, I mean, who knows? UCLA, if they have a terrible year, wouldn't be shocked to see Mora jump ship.
I was going to say that would be the only one that I could see in the Pac-12 would be Mora.
Yeah, that's probably it.
And agree with Holgorsen. He's probably the most likely guy out in the Big 12.
Yes. Yep.
So West Virginia would be my play under 7.5.
Based on performance, I wouldn't. If Oklahoma State has a good year, they're my overplay. But I wouldn't be shocked if Gundy got a bigger job. I don't see him getting fired, obviously, but he might leave for something bigger.
To up north to the Big Ten. Give me your overall thoughts on the Big Ten this year.
This is your country right here. I like the Big Ten this year. Michigan's got a ton of hype. I think Ohio State is not being talked about enough. I think Penn State should be better, maybe. There's still a couple of doormats. My Maryland Terrapins will be a doormat. But this is a conference where physical play, it's going to get cold, but I like 3 or 4 teams in this conference a lot, actually. I
agree. I think the Big Ten will have a good year nationally as well.
Yeah.
I think there's too much hype around Michigan right now and not enough hype around Ohio State.
Yep.
Agree. Penn State should be better this year. Disagree. I think Maryland is going to be better than last year. And
their defense is going to be really, really bad.
I know that they've been in the top 10 the past couple of years, but I don't think, similar to David Shaw, I don't think D'Antonio gets the credit he deserves at Michigan State.
He is the David Shaw of the Big Ten. A lot of people think they're going to be really down this year. Losing Connor Cook, big deal, but I think he's such a good coach. Wouldn't surprise me at all if he turns it around quickly.
They do have to go to Notre Dame, but they get their other big games at home. They have BYU at home, Michigan at home, and Ohio State at home.
3 tough games. They'll probably win one of those. I think I would like to go against BYU, but tough. The other 2 are tough games.
I agree. Give me your thoughts on the 2 teams at the top of this division.
Really like Ohio State. I love that no one's talking about them. I think Barrett has a huge year. We'll talk about this again in a little bit, but his Heisman odds, I think, are a nice little nibble. I think he has a monster year. They did lose a lot of players, Zeke especially, but that's a position where I think they'll just plug somebody in and won't miss a beat. They have a lot of young guys on the outside, but I really like their talent going through some of their recruits. I think they're going to step in right away. I like the over with Ohio State this year. I think they have a chance to go undefeated again.
You said it all perfectly. That Oklahoma game on September 17th will be awesome.
Yeah.
There could be stumbling blocks October 15th or 22nd at Wisconsin or at Penn State. Just because it's early, they do have a lot of young guys. They only returned 6 starters. But I think that this is a team that's going to get better as the year goes on. And they're going to be full throttle for November 26th hosting Michigan.
Yeah, I like the way their schedule sets up, actually. Those 2 back-to-back games is the tough stretch. But they get to play Rutgers after Oklahoma, and they get a bye week in there. I think Indiana's a sneaky good team. I don't think they're going to, be able to pull the upset, but I think that's a little bit tougher game than people think. And then they have a nice stretch with Northwestern, Nebraska, and Maryland leading up to the 2 Michigan teams. I think that's where, like you just said, I think you could really see them get on a roll right there.
How about their rival, the Wolverines?
They're going to be really good. I always am cautious about putting teams up there. We've done it a couple times already with different conferences, Washington specifically. I think I want to see them one more year before I'm ready to say that that's the team, especially offensively. I know Harbaugh's a quarterback guy. He does wonders with quarterbacks. Their defense is going to be really good. Peppers might be the best player they've had since Charles Woodson. They're in a good conference because you don't need to score a ton, but I think to beat Ohio State, you're still going to have to score some points. And offensively is still where my questions are.
They schedule is so favorable for them. Their first 5 games are at home: Hawaii, UCF, Colorado, Penn State, Wisconsin. Then at Rutgers, open week, Illinois at home, at Michigan State. You can make a case their first true road game is really at Michigan State 2 days before Halloween.
They will be, I think, unless something stupid happens, I think they will be undefeated going to Iowa November 12th.
Yeah, they should be favored in all those games. I'll be interested to see what that Michigan State line is. I think that might be inflated, and the Sparty could be a play there.
That will be a quasi-Halloween game for the students, so that place they'll probably have one of those blackouts. That place should be rowdy.
Yeah, I agree, though. I think there's too much hype. First-year quarterback, I like that he gets to be tutored with Jim Harbaugh, but I think they're a year away, as you said. I think Ohio State flying under the radar, especially with Urban Meyer, is the play in this side of the division.
Yeah, they're probably equal as coach, but if you're giving me Urban Meyer with a 3-year, very, very good quarterback in Barrett, I'll take that all day long over Harbaugh with a very inexperienced quarterback. He'll get some experience with those first 7 games. He'll be able to get his feet under him with some easy opponents, but at Sparty, cakewalk with Maryland, and at Iowa, those 2 road games, we'll see what they're really made of right there.
Give me a capsule on your Terrapins.
They're starting to get recruits. Love the hire. I think they will be good eventually, but man, stepping up in a conference like this, you got to have some depth, which they severely lack. They'll have a couple good skill players. Likely will play both ways this year, which will be fun to watch. They have some good freshman recruits, but new coach, young players, usually not a good recipe, and their quarterback position is a disaster. So if you don't have a quarterback, you're not going to win many games, especially when your other positions aren't very strong. They're very, very weak defensively in the front 7, so I think they're going to get pushed around a ton.
I like Ohio State's over at 9.5. I like Sparty's under at 8.5. But Maryland is my favorite play in the Big Ten, over 4.5 wins.
Wow. What games do you see them winning? So you like them 5 wins. Where do their 5 wins come from?
Howard, at FIU, at UCF.
So you think they start 3-0?
I think they can start 4-0 with Purdue coming to town on October 1st. Minnesota's.
So you think, what is their next win?
Minnesota's winnable. I don't know if they'll win it just because Minnesota's so physical, but they don't score a ton of points. Indiana will be tough on the road, but they could beat Indiana.
They'll lose that game by a lot.
Rutgers at the end will be a win.
They'll be 2-0, I think. UCF, at UCF, I don't know. We'll see about that one. Even if they start 4-0, I wouldn't love the bet. I'm dead serious. Wouldn't love. They're going to get blasted in conference. I think they won 1 conference game last year. I think they'd be lucky to win 1 again.
I like the Terps.
Have had it, bud. My over/under in this conference is Ohio State. Love the over there.
Just a quick capsule on Penn State. It's going to depend both on their O-line and D-line this year. O-line's got a lot of guys back. They returned 9 guys on offense. Their skill positions are maybe as good as anybody in the country, in the conference. Wide receivers and running back are really, really good. If they get any...
Question about the running back. How many games do they have to win for him to be a legitimate Heisman contender?
I'd say 8 wins, but he'd have to go nuts against Ohio State and Michigan State and Michigan. 2 of those 3, I would say.
Yeah.
If they get anything from their O-line, they should be able to score a ton of points. Defensively, their front 4 is going to be pretty weak. But the back 7's pretty strong. This will be a team that probably wins a game they shouldn't and loses a game they shouldn't. I think probably 8-4, and Franklin will take that next step next year.
Where are you at with Franklin? Where are the fans at with James Franklin?
I love this is finally going to be his offensive system. They got a mobile quarterback. He brought in the offensive coordinator from Fordham who runs an up-tempo offense similar to Oregon, probably not as fast, which will certainly help out the O-line not having to hold blocks as long. He's going to get the ball to the skill guys in space. Defensively, they probably a big drop-off in defensive coordinator. Defensive coordinator was really, really good last year, Bob Shoop. He left to go to Tennessee. One of his understudies has been promoted, Brent Pry. So I think that defensively they'll take a step back, especially on the front four. You should be able to run on Penn State this year. But I think Franklin's headed in the right direction. I think next year is going to be the big year for him, though.
Do they get 8 wins this year? Tough game against Temple at Michigan. 2 cakes at home in Minnesota and Maryland. Then you play Ohio State at home.
I think that they beat Kent State. I think they're going to split with Pitt and Temple. I think they'll probably lose at Pitt. They'll be 2-1. They'll lose at Michigan 2-2. I think they beat Minnesota and Maryland at home 4-2. They're either going to beat Ohio State or Iowa at home. So that'll be 5-3. They'll beat Purdue 6-3. They'll beat Rutgers 7-3. I think they split.
And then they got to split with Indiana or Sparty.
I do think they split. I don't know which way it goes. I think they're 8-4.
I think that's a good season for them then.
Yeah, I would agree. How about the other side of the division? Not as exciting as this side, but your thoughts.
My thoughts on the west side are, I think it's going to be an exact replay of last year. I think Iowa returns a lot. I think people are going to be complaining by November 1st about how easy their schedule is. And I like Iowa over again. I think they're 8.5, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct.
I like them over. They just don't play that many tough games.
Completely agree. Here's their out-of-conference schedule. Don't laugh.
That's a joke.
Miami, Ohio, Iowa State, North Dakota State, all at home. At Rutgers, Northwestern at home, at Minnesota, at Purdue, Wisconsin at home. Tough ending at Penn State, Michigan, at Illinois, Nebraska on a Friday at home.
Yeah, that at Penn State, Michigan, tough, but they could pick one of those games off, especially Michigan at home. I don't think that's a check for Michigan by any means. They could get the thing rolling again just like they did last year. The confidence will be high. The place will be rocking at home. I just think it's a mirror image of last season.
I agree. I like their over. The other game, or the other team I like as far as over-unders go, I love the under for Wisconsin this year, which is 7.
I agree. I think they are not a strong team this year. I think they only get 5 wins, actually.
Yeah, tough games. LSU, at Michigan State, at Michigan, Ohio State, at Iowa, Nebraska. Those 5 are right in a row.
Brutal.
Yeah, I see a 6-6 year.
LSU, they're not going to win. They'll get two pickers after that, but then they run into four really strong games there. And, once a team gets on a slide, it's hard to bring it back.
Not only that,
especially a team that struggles to score.
Yeah, they break in a new quarterback, and as you just mentioned, they struggle to score.
Yeah.
And the other big thing, they lose their defensive coordinator, Dave Aranda, who was very highly thought of. He went to LSU.
Good point. Totally forgot about that.
So I have Ohio State and Iowa, Ohio State coming out of the Big Ten.
Exactly the same thing for me.
To the NFL, SEC.
So you're on board as an SEC homer now. I like it.
Actually, before we get there, we'll save the best for last. Give me your thoughts on Notre Dame, the Independent.
Same as last year, basically. I think Zaire could have a good year. I think these recent run-ins with the law That bothers me. There's some good players involved in that. Love Brian Kelly as a coach. Don't think they have as much talent on offense this year, though.
Yeah, I like the way their schedule sets up. They 7 of their first 9 games they play quarterbacks who are making their first year starts. They only have 3 true road games. I'm trying to get their schedule up now. I think the 2 QB system works for Notre Dame. I don't know why. Although I do wish they'd play Kaiser. I think he's the better option. Their 3 true road games are at Texas, at NC State, and at USC.
Yep.
Army's in San Antonio, Navy's in Jacksonville, and Syracuse is at the Meadowlands. Other than Texas, they get Michigan State at home, Stanford at home, Miami at home, and Vatech at home. I think they have a very favorable schedule. But
it's a pretty easy schedule overall.
I think that Texas game is huge for them.
Huge game.
If they drop that Texas game, there's other teams on this schedule, such as Michigan State, Stanford, Miami, and Vatech, but their seasons could go either way. And if they go on the downside, Notre Dame's not going to have a quality win on this schedule.
No, I think they lose the Stanford game for sure. I don't love the matchup against Texas. They are lucky they get them earlier in the year, though, so let's just say they win that game.
Yeah.
I think they still have 2 losses, even if they beat Texas. One Stanford, and they'll lose somewhere else, probably one of those back 5 games, Miami, Navy, Army, Virginia Tech, or USC. And with 2 losses, I don't think there's any way they have a chance for the playoffs.
No, I agree. I think they do go 10-2, and despite the name, I do think they're left out this year.
Yep.
All right, finally to the SEC. Let's start in the East.
All right.
Your thoughts?
A lot of hype with Tennessee, rightfully so. They have a ton of NFL players on this roster. I think it was just a matter of time. You could kind of see it growing the last 2 or 3 years. They started to play some close games. They started to get some kids that popped off your screen. The key to Tennessee's season will be late in the year. They got to get the bugaboo of Florida off their back. They got to beat Florida. They scream to me that they will get up for games, but they also might lose a game they have no business losing.
Yeah, they get Florida September 24th at home. As you said, they got a ton of kids coming back. 17 starters back. They're one of the most experienced teams in the country. 9 guys on offense, including that quarterback, Josh Dobbs.
I like him a lot.
They do get Florida at home. They have a tough 4-week stretch starting the 24th of September. Florida, at Georgia, at Texas A&M, and Alabama at home. But other than that, the schedule's manageable for them. I like them this year.
Yeah, I like them too. Going through their schedule, I think they probably have 2 losses. Just nature of the SEC. But I like it how they have a lot of their tough games before October and earlier, where
Right.
they get a loss or 2 out of the way, then they win 6 or 7 games in a row. That's kind of how you play the poll system. So I like that about their schedule.
One scary stat that I did see is they're 3-28 their last 31 games against ranked teams.
Yes, they've been down.
They
for a
have
while.
been down. That's a good point.
5 years ago they had kids that had no business even playing in the SEC. So
11 game losing streak to Florida.
That's it right there. That's what I have circled in my notes. They have to beat Florida, I think, to be a legit contender this year.
Yeah, I think they'll be really up for that, and I think I'm going to put a star against the week after at Georgia. That'll be a good spot for Georgia.
Yes. Georgia, young quarterback. We'll talk about them in a second here. But that could be an easy letdown game right there.
To Georgia, first-year coach Kirby Smart, former defensive coordinator at Alabama. He gets 14 guys back, 8 on the offensive side of the ball. Your thoughts on the hire of Kirby Smart, and what do you expect from the Dogs this year?
I like the hire. I like the shift. I think it was just time for Mark Richt to move on. Sometimes, you would know as an Eagles fan with Andy Reid, sometimes it's just you need something new, and I think that was the case. They returned Nick Chubb off of injury. He's a really good player. It worries me a little bit that he just got cleared to play. I think it's kind of late. And they have a pretty tough start to the year. I think that Carolina game is sneaky hard. Then they got to go to Mizzou and then at Ole Miss, home for Tennessee. Tough start to their schedule.
I agree. Stat for Nick Chubb last year, granted they had an easy schedule early, but they averaged 37 points a game with Chubb in the lineup. When he went out, it dropped to 17 points per game.
Yes. He, like I said earlier, he was, with Stanford, he was the majority of their offense. I don't love picking a team that relies so heavily on one player, especially in the SEC. I mean, you're just going to get beat up and beat up. I lean under with Georgia's win total this year.
Yeah, it's set at 9. I kind of agree. I think Kirby Smart will be an upgrade to the defense, but their secondary, I think you could pick on it.
I think their defense is fairly soft overall. They have a couple of athletes, but you kind of really saw it deteriorate the last couple of years under Mark Richt. That's why I like the Smart hire. I think the next 2 or 3 years he'll get his defensive guys in there. But I think they're one of the weaker defenses for the quote-unquote good teams in the SEC.
To the Gators, the other favorite in the SEC East. As we mentioned, 11-game win streak against Tennessee. They do have to go to Tennessee this year. 12 returning starters for McElwain. Your thoughts on the Gators?
I like McElwain. I think the Gators, the same question we've had the last 4 years now, it seems like maybe 5. They got to be able to score. They have not been able to score at all the last few years. We'll see if they found a quarterback, but I think long-term, I like Florida with McElwain. I think his offensive style is going to fit the athletes that they get pretty well. I was going through their recruiting. They're not getting the same caliber of guys the last 2 years that they normally do. So I think that's something to watch moving forward.
Yeah, I think I'm not overly excited about this Florida team. The schedule's somewhat favorable for them. But quarterback-wise, I still have questions there. I still think they're going to struggle to score. But if they do go to Tennessee and win, they obviously control their destiny from there.
Yeah, they get 3 easy teams to start their schedule. Obviously, at Tennessee's a tough one. They get LSU at home, but I think they'll be overmatched in that one. They get Georgia at home. That's a winnable game. I think at Arkansas, November 5th. The week after the cocktail party is a loss. We might want to mark that one down as a future bet.
Yeah, that Georgia game is in Jacksonville for the tailgate.
Yes, the cocktail party. And then they end the year at Florida State. I think they'll be overmatched in that one. I think the worst spot on their schedule is at Arkansas after Georgia. I see them with 4, maybe 5 losses this year.
Yeah, I agree. I love that Arkansas spot. To me, this is Tennessee's to lose this side of the division.
I agree. I think they're in the driver's seat. Don't love Georgia or Florida this year. So, and South Carolina, not sure what their updated over-under is, but wouldn't be shocked to see them only win 4 or 5 games.
Just another note on that Arkansas-Florida game. Arkansas will be coming off a bye week.
Tasty.
Yeah, Missouri should have a decent defense, but they don't have enough offensively to do anything. And I agree that Georgia and Florida, I think, are going to struggle finding their way. They're probably a year or 2 away, so if Tennessee doesn't win it this year, they may not ever win it.
Yeah, this is a great spot for Tennessee, especially with, like I was just saying, South Carolina, I think, is going to be really down. Don't love the hire of Muschamp, so not much in the way of the Vols.
I like the Tennessee over 9.5 on this side of the division.
I'm going to go the Georgia under.
To the other side.
The real NFL.
Your thoughts?
Just a bloodbath of a division. Especially with, I think Arkansas is going to be good. I guess the weakest team on this side is A&M or Mississippi State, I guess. Probably Mississippi State, but man, Bama, LSU, Ole Miss, Arkansas is just going to kill each other.
Yes.
I had trouble picking who I like. I think there is going to be some craziness in this on this side of the division. Just by attrition, I guess I like Alabama to come away just because they're so deep. But same with them, as it seems like every year. The quarterback is the question mark.
Yeah, agree. The stat I saw was Saban's 52-4 with a first-year starter. Tough schedule. USC to open. They go at Mississippi 2 weeks later. They go to Arkansas, to Tennessee, Texas A&M, bye week at LSU. So a tough 5-week stretch for them.
That is awful.
They get A&M is coming off a bye, and LSU and Bama will both be coming off byes for that LSU-Bama showdown.
Yeah, I think this round robin, I don't see any team not having 2 losses by the end of the year. As good as LSU and Bama are, I think they both lose 2 somewhere.
We talked about this the other day. We make fun of Bob Stoops for coming up short, but Les Miles is entering that category.
Yeah, I would love to have a conversation with an actual LSU fan and see what their position is on him. I know he's had a ton of success there, but man, down there success is defined differently. So I would love to hear what they have to say about him. The LSU schedule to me is it's solely a 3-week stretch there. They should be undefeated. At Florida might be a little tricky, but they should be undefeated going into that October 22nd matchup against Ole Miss. And then they have Bama at Arkansas the following 2 games. So that's their whole season right there.
I agree. That's why I lean LSU in this side because of this schedule.
Fair enough.
I don't love going with Les Miles. I don't love going with Brandon Harris. But I just like that schedule for them this year. And I think they'll win this side of the division.
Yeah, their schedule is much, I think it's set up much easier than Bama's is. Maybe it's just the luck factor, or maybe it's the quarterback factor. I can't stand the quarterback situation there either. I still think they have 2 losses in that category as well. So that's why I lean Bama. I think Bama wins that head-to-head matchup.
LSU gets 17 returning starters back, including Leonard Fournette. As mentioned earlier, they get Dave Aranda from Wisconsin, who should upgrade the defensive side of the ball, especially the linebackers. I still like LSU.
All right. I'm going to go Bama.
Ole Miss, it seems like a lot of too much turmoil this offseason for me to jump on board with them. They maybe have the best quarterback on this side of the division with Chad Kelly. But
I think they do.
But I just think too much turmoil this offseason. Lost a lot of key pieces on the defensive side of the ball. They may surprise a team or two, but I think this will be a down year for Mississippi.
I mean, they lost their best offensive player, their 2 best offensive players, and their best defensive player. That's a lot to ask. They still have some talent. Like you said, they have the best quarterback on this side. I think that it has potential. Maybe they pluck an upset somewhere. I think them and Arkansas pull some sort of upset against somebody. That goes back to the 2-loss thing that I have. But like you said, they don't have enough to seriously contend on this side.
My guy on the hot seat is down in College Station, Kevin Sumlin. In this side of the division, or actually probably in the whole country. I think he's on the hottest seat in the whole country.
Interesting, yeah. they are not expected to have that good of a year. I think they're in a terrible spot division-wise, so not surprising to me at all if he gets canned.
Yeah, the tough schedule, UCLA, then they go at Auburn, Arkansas. They get Tennessee at home. They go to Bama. And they host Mississippi and LSU, but I just don't think they have enough offensively. Their front four defensively should be very, very good.
Might be the best front four in the SEC, which is saying something.
Yes. Miles Barrett may be the best player in the country.
Yeah, it'll be a very high draft pick. Maybe that wins them a game they shouldn't win, but like you said, offensively, they have nowhere near the players that they've had in years past.
Yeah, I think Sumlin's out at the end of this year.
Wow.
But my surprise team in the division and the over-under I like the most is over 7 on Auburn.
I do not love any of the over-unders in the entire on this side. I wanted to take the Arkansas over, but I just can't do it. I have no feel for how many games Bama or LSU are going to drop. I like them to drop 2, but I don't feel great about it. I kind of like the under Ole Miss if you force me to pick a play.
Yeah, I like Auburn's schedule somewhat favorable for SEC standards. They have a quarterback who's mobile now, will fit Malzahn's offense better. And coming off a tough year last year where they went 7-6, they only have 4 road games. I just think they'll have a little bit of a bounce back year this year.
I can see that. I still don't love what they're doing on the other side of the ball. They got beat up pretty good on that side last year. I don't think they'll be much improved defensively.
So for the SEC, I have LSU and Tennessee playing in Atlanta.
I have Bama and Tennessee playing in Atlanta.
And I don't feel comfortable picking either LSU or Tennessee.
I'm going to go with Tennessee. I'm going to go with some new blood.
I think I lean that way just because of Les Miles' past big game performances. Can Bama sneak into the playoff or LSU sneak into the playoff without playing in the SEC title game?
No, I don't think so.
If it's not Tennessee, if it's Florida or Georgia, can they?
Without playing in the title game, no, I don't think. I think no. I think there's too much, especially that time of year. There's too much anti-SEC rhetoric that I don't think enough people will want an SEC team, especially one that does not play in its own title game.
Give me your Final Four then.
Oh, man, I went back and forth on this, but I think this is the first year we're going to have 2 teams from a conference. I like Ohio State, I like Tennessee, and then I like Clemson and Florida State.
I have Tennessee as well, Ohio State, Florida State, and I really struggled on this 4th team, but I think it has to be Clemson just based on their schedule.
Yeah, I think Oklahoma's going to win Big 12, but I think that last year's performance might have left some people not believing in Bob Stoops. I think they get left out this year too.
Is there a chance where it comes down to Ohio State, Oklahoma for the 4th spot?
Well, I think Ohio State is going to go undefeated and win the Big Ten.
What?
I think the decision will be the team that loses the ACC versus Oklahoma.
What happens if Ohio State loses to Oklahoma, runs the table, finishes 11-1, Oklahoma finishes 11-1, they lose somewhere else along the way. Oklahoma has the head-to-head win. Ohio State probably has better wins on their resume. Who goes?
I have no idea. I had no idea. I would lean Ohio State.
It will always play itself out, and things are going to happen, but it's an interesting hypothetical.
It is. I generally lean to the team that is on the run, regardless of the head-to-head, just because that's what's fresh in people's mind.
Yeah, I think the SEC champion's definitely in. The ACC champion's definitely in. And I think if it's Ohio State, Michigan, they're definitely in the Big Ten champion.
Yes.
But then I think there's 3 or 4 teams battling for that last spot. I think Bama can make a case. Clemson makes a case. Or Florida State Clemson makes a case. The SEC loser in the title game makes a case. And you probably could say Notre Dame has a case if they go 10-2, 11-1.
I think Notre Dame's got to have one loss to have a case.
Yeah. Looking at the schedule, as we talked about, most likely. But the name Notre Dame means something still, I think.
Sure. I think there's an outside scenario. Let's just say Stanford has a really good year. We're not talking about the Pac-12, obviously, but if they have 2 losses, I think they're in the conversation.
Sure.
But brutal schedule, don't think that happens. But I think that's the only way the Pac-12 gets a consideration.
Your champion.
I'm going Ohio State. I think I just love J.T. Barrett this year. I think he's going to Heisman. I think I love the angle of Urban Meyer telling his team no one's talking about them. They're now the underdogs to Michigan, who has never done anything. Love that angle. I think the schedule sets up for them to get hot, get those young guys rolling. And I think once they're in the playoffs, I think I like Urban Meyer as the best coach in the country. So I like that angle, too.
I'm going similar thoughts. I think the Heisman Trophy winner will be Dalvin Cook, and I like Florida State to hoist the trophy again.
Can't disagree with it. I think I'm more of a Clemson guy. I picked them the way ACC. I think we'll see that title game, Ohio State-Clemson.
As I broke everything down and looked at college football, it's obviously wide open, but I think there's a lot of big games this year.
I don't think it's as wide open as it has been in years past. I think the SEC West makes it feel more wide open, but I think there's a clear line with conferences that are down this year. Big 12, Pac-12, SEC East, all are down. So I think there's a line there with the SEC West, the ACC, and the Big Ten as the clear top dogs.
Interesting thought. Anything else on college football?
No, just ready to get going.
Tonight, back in action. We'll be back tomorrow for a brief podcast to give your golf pick and go over some of the big games and give our official college football picks for the weekend.
Sounds good.
Great talking to you. Good job on the preview.
You too, buddy.
Talk to you soon.
See ya.
Bye.